Welcome to The Last Living Prepper. In today's video, we will be discussing 12 tools and accessories which you should have in your car. If you find this content helpful or you want to share your thoughts on this matter, please leave a comment. The first on our list is axe. Remember to check law regulations in your country of residence regarding carrying an axe or having an axe in your car. Often, a tool like an axe or knife is only illegal if you show intent to use it as a weapon, even if it's for self-defense purposes, or if you are brandishing it. So if you have the axe in your trunk with other tools for emergencies, especially if you live in a remote area, it should be fine. Keeping an axe in your car can make a lot of sense if you live in a rural area or travel long distances. They can be great tools to have during emergencies, bad weather, property maintenance, camping, or even just for free firewood opportunities. When you consider keeping an axe in your car, only axes with composite or steel handles should be stored long-term in vehicles. Extended exposure to temperature and humidity changes will cause wood handles to loosen with time. The environmental changes can also cause rust, even for an unused axe. If you want to get a wood-handled axe, wood has fibers that can shrink and expand with environmental changes. When exposed to this for a long period, they can become damaged and dried out. The heat will expand the fibers, crushing those stuck in the head. Then when it's cold, they will shrink and shift. This will loosen the head and weaken the handle. Storing a wood-handled axe in a car short-term will be fine. We are talking here about days or weeks. And if it's well-oiled, it will have resistance to the environmental factors. Just don't leave it for months on end in your car. Composite handles will be unaffected by environmental factors. Steel handles axes can also be used quite well in this role. However, they may feel uncomfortable, and the handle might get rust stains. You need to be aware that the temperature and humidity changes will also cause rust on your axe no matter what type. A coated head will do a better job of stopping rust, and they can be found on most composite-handled axes. But the coatings are not foolproof, especially once you have started using the axe. Unless you are using the axe for specific work, you'll probably want a chopping or general use axe. Most of the emergency scenarios are going to require you to chop through wood or through some hard material. Some splitting may be required too. An overlooked detail for storing your axe in the car is making sure you're using the right kind of sheath. They are incredibly important for safety and avoiding damage to your axe or vehicle, but can also cause specific problems. The best is an open and vented plastic sheath solution, which will allow condensation and moisture to escape. A nylon or leather sheath would also be fine. The wedge-shaped head design is quite good at both chopping and splitting greenwood. Plus, some axes come coated for rust resistance. The coating will wear off with use. Smaller axes would make a great alternative for those who need a more compact option. Its head is tailored slightly more toward chopping, and it can still be used one- or two-handed. The standard hatchet would also make a great compact emergency or camping tool that can fit almost anywhere and be used by almost anyone. Some brands offer composite axes that have a similar wedge-shaped and coated head, but with a unique advantage. The pole, which is the back of the axe head, is flat and hardened so it can be used as a hammer or hammered upon. This gives you even more capability while you are out and about. But there are two trade-offs. Sharpening is required and you may pay a higher price. Now let's say a few words about maintenance. It's up to you how much you care about these axes. You can wipe the head down with oil like WD-40 every 6 months or after use to prevent rust. Otherwise, just leave it. Like any axe, you will need to sharpen it eventually after use, but just do as needed. When using an axe, follow these safety measures. Inspect the axe for damage before use. Wear appropriate safety clothing. Keep the axe head covered when transporting it or in camp. Avoid chopping upward to prevent injuries. Maintain a safety circle to avoid obstacles. Check the axe head and handle before use. A folding saw is a type of hand saw that can be folded into a compact size for storage or transport. That is why we recommend having this type of saw in your car. It typically has a handle made of plastic or wood, with a blade that can be locked in place when in use and folded back into the handle when not in use. The blade is usually made of high-carbon steel or stainless steel and has teeth on one or both edges. It is used for a variety of tasks, including pruning trees and shrubs, cutting branches, and trimming plants. It is often preferred over other types of saws because it is lightweight, portable, and easy to use. Folding saws are also useful for camping, hiking, and other outdoor activities, as they can be easily carried in a bag or backpack. Some folding saws are designed for specific purposes, such as cutting through thick wood, while most are general purpose. There are several types of folding saws, each designed for a specific purpose. Some common types of folding saws include pruning saw. Pruning saws are designed for trimming branches and cutting through small to medium-sized branches. These saws often have a curved blade with a fine tooth pattern, which allows for precise cuts. Folding bow saw. A folding bow saw is a larger saw with a bow-shaped frame that allows it to cut through thicker branches and logs. These saws often have a coarse tooth pattern and a blade that can be replaced. Next is the pocket saw. A pocket saw is a small, compact saw that is designed to fit in a pocket or a small bag. These saws are often used for pruning and light woodcutting tasks, and they can be folded up when not in use. Hand saw. A hand saw is a larger saw with a straight blade that is used for cutting through wood, plastic, or other materials. They are available in a variety of sizes and tooth patterns to suit different cutting tasks. Now we're going to discuss a list of common features and accessories for folding saws. First one is blade. Folding saws typically have replaceable blades that can be swapped out when they become dull or damaged. The blades are usually made of high-quality steel and are designed for cutting through a variety of materials, including wood, bone, and plastic. Next are handles. Folding saws have handles that are ergonomically designed to be comfortable to hold and use. Some handles are made of rubber or other non-slip materials to improve grip, while others may have a textured surface for improved aesthetics. Locks. Many folding saws have a lock mechanism that keeps the blade in place when it is extended. This helps prevent the blade from accidentally folding back into the handle while the saw is in use. Blade guards. Some folding saws have a blade guard that covers the blade when it is not in use. This helps protect the blade from damage and also helps prevent accidental cuts. Cases. Some models come with a protective case or sheath that can be used to store and transport the saw. These cases are usually made of durable materials like nylon or leather and help protect the saw from the elements. Remember about safety measures when you use folding saws. By following these safety measures, you can reduce the risk of injury and ensure that you use your folding saw safely and effectively. Wear personal protective equipment such as safety glasses or goggles to protect your eyes from sawdust and debris. Keep a firm grip on the saw handle to prevent the saw from slipping and causing injury. Use the saw blade guard or cover when the saw is not in use to protect the blade and prevent accidental cuts. Use the lock mechanism to secure the saw blade in place when the saw is open and in use. Be sure to follow the manufacturer's instructions for using and maintaining the saw, including sharpening and replacing the blade as needed. Always use the saw in a well-ventilated area to reduce the risk of inhaling sawdust and other particles. Do not use the saw to cut materials that it is not designed for, such as metal or stone. Keep the saw away from children and unauthorized users. Next up, we have folding shovel. In 1938, the German Klappspaten foldable spade appeared, being the precursor of all modern spades of this kind, including the 1943 American version. Folding designs became increasingly popular, usually consisting of a fixed handle with a folding shovel head, sometimes incorporating a pick into the design. By the time World War II came around, the fixed entrenching tool evolved into the foldable design we know today. Generally, the folded shovels are similar to the standard shovel, but they are more workable and compact. The folding shovels further have two more types: a collapsible shaft and a bendable shaft, so that you can choose according to your needs. When selecting a folding shovel, consider the following factors to find the best fit for your needs. Purpose. Determine your primary use. Are you camping, hiking, or preparing for emergencies? Some folding shovels are multifunctional, offering additional features like saws, pickaxes, and fire starters. Material. Look for a sturdy blade made from quality materials. High carbon steel is a good choice for durability. Weight. Opt for a lightweight design, around 3 pounds or less, for easy portability. Handle. Choose a comfortable handle style, straight, D-grip, or crutch that suits your grip preference. Grip. Consider the grip material such as non-slip, rubber, or plastic for ease of use and comfort. Collar. Ensure a strong connection between the blade and shaft. The collar adds rigidity and stability. As for the use of the folding shovel, you can dig trenches, dugouts, and shelters, dig latrines and cooking pits, move debris and rubble, and fill sandbags during emergencies. Now, let's talk about car jack. A car jack is any mechanical device used for lifting a vehicle partially or entirely off the ground. Why would you want to do this? There are many possibilities, including seasonal tire changes or rotation, changing a flat tire, making repairs, changing your oil, inspecting for damage. There are two basic types of car jack: mechanical and hydraulic. Mechanical jacks use purely mechanical methods of creating lift. This may mean using a screw to raise and lower a hinged mechanism incrementally, or using a ratcheting system to lift a vehicle a notch at a time slowly. Included in this category are your basic scissor jack, and the savior of many an off-roader, the high lift jack. Hydraulic jacks use either a horizontally or vertically mounted hydraulic cylinder to lift large objects. How do hydraulics work? Without going too deep into the physics, basically, a hydraulic system takes advantage of the fact it is really difficult to compress a fluid. The jack has a reservoir full of a sort of oil. On the upstroke of the handle, some of that oil is pulled from the reservoir. On the downstroke, that portion of the oil is forced into the central cylinder and underneath a piston. As the amount of fluid under the piston increases, the pressure, which keeps building because the oil won't compress, pushes the cylinder up. It will stay up until the oil is let out and flows back into the reservoir. The most common type of hydraulic jacks are bottle jacks and floor jacks. When it comes down to choosing a car jack for your car, a scissor jack is the simplest type of jack, and also one of the oldest styles. Many vehicles come with a basic scissor jack included with the spare tire. Before buying a new one, you may want to check to see if you already own one. As the name suggests, a scissor jack consists of two interconnecting scissor mechanisms. There's a base for resting on at the bottom and a lifting saddle at the top. Running through the middle of the jack and connecting the two sides through their respective hinges is a long threaded screw. Turning the screw either opens or closes the two scissor joints, thereby raising or lowering the saddle. Between uses, a scissor jack folds up nice and compact, and they're a piece of cake to store. They're incredibly lightweight, and you can cart one about in your trunk or storage box with ease. They are very simple to use, and there's next to no maintenance required aside from just keeping them clean. As every tool, the scissor car jack has pros. It is very simple to operate. Minimal maintenance is required because it has no fluids to leak or replace. It folds up very small for storage or transport, short enough to fit under most vehicles. The cons are, it is slower than hydraulic jacks. The narrower base means less stability. Needs to be low to the ground to operate. Finger pinching is a real possibility. The scissor jack may not be the best option for anyone who races their vehicle or has a heavy vehicle. Apart from that, a scissor jack is a great no-frills choice for an automotive jack. If you appreciate the simplicity and want a lightweight jack on hand for those rare times when you really need one, this is an excellent option for you. Next up is a tool that's often overlooked: lug wrench. A lug wrench, also colloquially known as a tire iron, is the name for a type of socket wrench used to loosen and tighten lug nuts on automobile wheels. In the United Kingdom and Australia, it is commonly known as a wheel brace. Lug wrenches may be L-shaped or X-shaped. The form commonly found in car trunks is an L-shaped metal rod with a socket wrench on the bent end and a prying tip on the other end. The prying tip is mainly intended to remove hubcaps or wheel covers that may be covering a wheel's lug nuts. Another common type, sometimes called a spider wrench, is made in the shape of a cross with different size sockets on each of the four ends. Other names are four-way wheel wrench, spanner, brace, or cross. Ideally, the nuts or bolts should be tightened with a torque wrench. Lug wrenches are much less expensive because they lack the ability to measure or limit the force used. Installing a wheel with a lug wrench thus requires a bit of rough guessing about proper tightness. Excessive force can strip threads or make the nuts very difficult to remove. Also, uneven torque between the various lug nuts, or excessive torque, can lead to warping of the brake rotor if the car is equipped with disc brakes. For this reason, impact wrenches should properly be used only for removing lug nuts, not for tightening them, although in practice this rule is often ignored for convenience's sake, even by professional mechanics. When refitting a wheel, the nuts or bolts should be tightened in a crisscross pattern to even out the forces, and initially should only be tightened finger-tight on all nuts. In this context, finger-tight is tight enough to reach the point where free play is taken up and proper tightening is about to begin. Say, the tightening force using the lug wrench or wheel brace like a screwdriver. This should be repeated twice to ensure the wheel is properly centered and restrained by all nuts, as often the first nut that is tightened will be slightly loose after completing the set for the first time. Then the wheel should be lowered to the ground, and the crisscross tightening pattern repeated to modest torque, say few fingers force on the lug wrench or wheel brace arm, and then finally repeated to full hand force. Rarely, and more often with large trucks and lorries, insufficient force can lead to the nuts coming undone while in use. Because of this, it is best to use a torque wrench or similar tool to finally tighten the wheel lug nuts to the proper torque specification as soon as possible after using a lug wrench to affix a wheel. At the very least, the lug nuts should be checked for tightness after 50 to 100 kilometers or miles when things have been subject to some vibration and thermal cycling. This tool also has a secondary usage. It can be used as a tool to remove vehicles that are stuck in snow. Now that we've covered the lug wrench, let's move on to crowbar. A crowbar, also known as a pry bar, wrecking bar, gorilla bar, or pinch bar, is a metal bar tool with flatted points at each end, often with a small fissure. The function of this fissure is to help remove nails or prise two materials or objects apart. One end of the bar is curved into a hook shape, a first-class lever that is usually the end most commonly used. The straighter flat end is a second-class lever. It is commonly believed this hooked end is where the tool gets its name from, as it resembles a crow's beak. Crowbars are usually made from medium carbon steel to offer sustained strength and durability and support heavy use. However, they can also be made from titanium, which creates a lighter tool. They are forged from long steel products, such as rods and rails, and commonly have either cylindrical or hexagonal shapes to their bodies. A crowbar often conjures up the picture of an implement used to pry something open, but there are other ingenious ways to use this multifaceted tool. At this point, you may wonder, what other uses do I have for a crowbar? The simplicity of a crowbar allows it to be considered a very versatile tool boasting diverse uses and enabling a wide range of work to be performed across multiple industries and varied environments. The most common applications for crowbars are prizing open nailed wooden crates. If you need to separate materials such as boards or furniture, a crowbar can dismantle them precisely to minimize damage to the materials. Sometimes it can be used to remove nails from wooden surfaces, dig up holes in the garden, or serve as a makeshift hammer. With the right technique and crowbar, you will find crowbars an outstanding aid for achieving better results where brute strength is needed in indoor and outdoor settings. Crowbars can be used in a vast multitude of projects that require a tool that can help exact leverage to separate materials, such as opening crates and pallet breaking in warehousing. They are also commonly used in renovation projects, used to remove paneling or lift flooring boards. You might expect to see crowbars being used by any of the following industries: builders, construction workers, demolition workers, carpenters, mechanics, automotive engineers. Let's talk about the sockets and ratchets, a versatile and strong tools. Sockets and ratchets perform the same function as wrenches. However, these basic mechanical tools allow the user to tackle the task of loosening and tightening fasteners in a more efficient manner. Ratchet is the informal word used to refer to a ratcheting socket wrench. It consists of a handle and a socket. The handle is the wrench. On the ratchet handle is a mechanism that allows the ratchet to engage and reverse the direction of the ratchet to loosen or tighten fasteners like nuts and bolts. Sockets are tools that attach to a ratchet, torque, or socket wrench. It's used mostly for loosening and tightening fasteners such as nuts and bolts. The socket is placed on the square extension or driver of the ratchet. Once it's secured to the ratchet, the user can loosen or tighten a bolt or nut while the socket remains in place by just turning the handle of the ratchet. A ratchet and socket combination allows the user to turn a fastener without having to reposition the tool on the fastener. If you are using a wrench, you would definitely have to reposition it after each turn. Ratchet and socket make operating in tight corners more manageable because there is little to no space for a wrench to be leveraged. A ratchet-socket combination with or without an extension allows the fastener to be tightened or loosened with ease. It's also less likely to slip like some types of wrenches, because the socket fits completely around the fastener. Ratchets come in various sizes from 1/4 inch drive, 1/2 inch drive, and 3/8 inch drive, to name a few. While most ratchets use a gear drive, it can also be gearless, jointed, or have a flex head for especially hard-to-reach areas. There are a variety of sockets that can be connected to the ratchet depending on the use. SAE sockets. Society of Automotive Engineers sockets are designed for American or Imperial System fasteners. Metric sockets for metric socket sizes are measured in millimeters. Torx bit sockets are designed for Torx screws. Impact sockets are used with impact wrenches. Driver sockets tighten and loosen screws using the ratchet handle. Spark plug sockets are specially fitted for changing spark plugs. Even if you have the right size socket, it may not work for every type of job. Working in tight spaces or on difficult tasks, you may need a special socket length or type to get the job done efficiently. Ratchets and sockets also have special features that can make work easier. We are talking here about socket lengths such as standard length sockets, best for basic projects. Deep sockets help you reach bolts that are far down on a vehicle or machinery. Also, they are often needed when the bolt extends from the nut or the fastener is recessed. Low-profile sockets, best for tight spaces that can be difficult to maneuver in. Mid-length or intermediate sockets, useful for projects in tighter spaces that require additional reach. Furthermore, there are special features and additional tools. Socket extensions. Extensions go between the socket and ratchet to reach parts that are unreachable with a regular socket. Locking extensions help keep your socket secure to the ratchet. Socket adapters. Socket adapters let you use a socket with a ratchet of a different drive size. Breaker bars. A breaker bar is designed to provide extra leverage to help break free a stuck or difficult nut or bolt. Ratchet and socket sets, along with specialty tools like breaker bars, are helpful for all sorts of vehicle repairs, construction tasks, and electronic and machinery maintenance. A set that has both SAE and metric sockets is ideal for most tasks. Now, let's move on to car bulbs. The car bulbs keep you safe and seen on the roads. Whether you're driving day or night, the indicators, brake lights, and main lights of your car are essential safety features that you, other drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians rely on. If you've got a broken bulb or need some spares for a road trip, then you'll need to make some choices. There are many options and car bulb types on the market, such as halogen bulbs. Halogen bulbs, sometimes called filament bulbs, are the classic car bulb design that we're all familiar with. The halogen bulb contains a tungsten filament that gets hot and creates light when a current passes through it. The bulb is filled with halogen gas to prevent them from discoloring. Most cars come fitted with halogen bulbs because they're more cost-effective to manufacture and therefore cheaper to replace than other bulb types. Swapping out a like-for-like bulb can be done in a few minutes, either by you or by the expert fitting service. You'll also find that halogen replacement car bulbs are cheaper than LED lights or xenon bulbs, although longer-life halogen bulbs can provide an improvement in operating life for a small cost increase per bulb. LED bulbs. Modern LED bulbs emit a brighter, whiter, and longer-lasting light than traditional halogen car bulbs, since they're full of light-emitting diodes. When electrons pass through, the semiconductors inside transform the power into light. LED bulbs are highly energy efficient, drawing a lower wattage from your car battery, and are designed to last the lifetime of your vehicle. They also provide a warm and intense beam that can be 150 to 300% brighter than a typical halogen bulb. You'll find that LED bulbs can be more expensive than other car bulb types, but that's offset by the hours of trouble-free operation you can expect. An LED bulb can last the lifetime of your vehicle. If you're searching for a replacement car bulb, the easiest way to find the ideal replacement is by using an online bulb selector. Type in your vehicle's registration number and you'll be shown the recommended bulbs that are applicable for your vehicle. You can also look in your vehicle handbook in the lighting section of the manual. If you don't have your registration number or vehicle handbook, You can identify the replacement bulb by removing the old one. You should be able to see the bulb's application number, which might begin with a D, H, or P. Using this number, you should be able to select an appropriate replacement. While LED lights are energy efficient, highly effective, and a worthwhile investment, there is a barrier to their usage. It's currently illegal to fit LED bulbs to your car unless your car's manufacturer has installed them. The reason for this is that no legislation currently exists to approve the use of LED lights as a replacement for the typical halogen lights you find on most vehicles. However, LED bulbs are perfectly legal for both interior lights and for off-road use. High-D bulbs. HID or xenon bulbs use an electric arc between two electrons within the bulb to create light. The inside of the bulb is filled with xenon gas, which produces a much brighter light than a halogen bulb. While they're more expensive than halogen or LED bulbs, HID bulbs can produce 300 to 450% more light than a standard halogen bulb and come in a range of colors. It is recommended to replace them every 3 years, and in pairs, even if they don't appear to have failed. HID bulbs aren't a slot-in replacement. Instead, you'll need some additions to fit them. Like LED lights, HID lights are only road legal for cars where they were originally fitted by the manufacturer. Choosing between style, brightness, and your bulb's lifespan can sometimes be a difficult choice. Understanding the difference between them doesn't have to be, though. The easiest way to learn what the difference is simple. Higher wattage halogen bulbs have a shorter lifespan. High-performance halogen upgrades can have a shorter life compared to a standard bulb. Long-life halogens are available, which can last up to 3 times longer than standard. LED bulbs have a lower wattage and a longer lifespan, but can still produce up to 300% more light. HID kits have a long lifespan, even though their light output is much larger than standard bulbs. When choosing a bulb for your car, try looking for a mixture between a decent lifespan and a good level of brightness. Next up is something small but mighty: spare car fuses. Fuses are designed to protect the electrical wiring in your car by blowing when there is too much current or a short circuit in the electrical system. Technically, a fuse protects the electrical system by disconnecting the circuit if there is a dangerous level of current somewhere. And when a fuse is blown, it's easy to track down and replace, restoring current to the system. Though they are all designed with the purpose of protecting your car's electrical components, there are various types of car fuses depending on the type of car, where it was built, and its age. To help you identify what electrical fuses your car has, in the event that your car exhibits some electrical mishaps, here are the most common types of fuses used in cars new and old. Blade fuses. Blade fuses are the most common types of fuses used in modern cars. They're identifiable by their plastic housings, which have 2 or 3 protruding metal prongs. There are various types of blade fuses: Maxi Heavy Duty, regular ATO or ATC, LP Mini Low Profile, Micro 2, and Micro 3. Bosch fuses, also known as Torpedo, European Continental, or GBC fuses. Bosch fuses were used in old European cars manufactured before 1980. They're identifiable by their conical ends and elongated dimensions 6 times 25 millimeters, and are color-coded for their current. For example, yellow for 5A, red for 16A, and blue for 25A. Glass tube fuses. Before the mid-1980s, glass tube fuses were commonly used in most American cars. They vary in length and diameter, but all have a metal strip that passes through the center. Lucas fuses. Used predominantly in British-made or British-assembled cars manufactured before the mid-1980s, Lucas fuses can be ceramic or glass. They measure either 1 or 1.25 inches in length, and the diameter sizes of the glass car fuses can differ. Limiter fuses. Limiter fuses, or current-limiting fuses, come in all shapes and sizes. Inside of each is an element that melts when the electric current passing through it exceeds the specified current-limiting range. It then creates a high resistance to the amplitude and duration of the current to protect the electrical circuit and connected components. Knowing how to tell if a fuse in your car is blown and knowing how to change a fuse can save you plenty of time and money. So if any of your power-operated features, such as the windows, seat position controls, or side view mirrors, stop responding to input, it could be a sign that one of your car's fuses is blown. This can, however, extend to the powertrain and chassis electronics, driver assistance technologies, safety systems, and other occupant features too. Vehicle fuse boxes are typically located beneath the steering wheel column or within the engine bay of modern vehicles, but it really depends on the vehicle and the type of car fuses the box is housing. Whether your car is a heavy-duty truck like a Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD, a lightweight Kia Forte, or a small SUV, you should have relatively easy access to the box. To check the fuse, you will need to locate the fuse box, identify the correct fuse for the system that has stopped working, and check if there is a fuse failure. Let's break it down into a step-by-step process. Step 1. Locate your car's fuse box. Fuse boxes for cars are usually located beneath the driver's steering wheel column, but can also be somewhere beneath the hood. You can check your car's user manual to determine the exact location. Step 2. Read the fuse change tutorial. On the inside of the fuse box, there's usually a diagram that denotes what each fuse in the box is used for and stipulates each fuse's amperage rating. This is also available in the owner's manual. If all else fails, Google is your friend and there are forums and even YouTube channels dedicated to this. Step 3. Locate the blown fuse. Locate the fuse you believe is blown and look for either a black burn mark or a broken filament, which indicates that the fuse has blown. You can also use a multimeter or test light to identify the dead fuse without having to pull it out. Step 4. Remove the blown fuse. Now that you know which fuse is likely the blown one, unplug or unscrew the fuse from the box carefully. You may need pliers for this. Step 5. Insert the replacement fuse. If you've followed each step properly, you'll know how to check for the fuse amperage rating. Ensure that the new fuse's amperage is the same as the one you're replacing. In some cases, there may be spare fuses already stored in the terminal box. Step 6. Test the replacement fuse. Start up your car so that you can check whether or not replacing the fuse has worked. If the primary problem persists, or if the fuse blows out again, then there could be a more serious problem with your car, and you'll have to take it to a professional. Now let's talk about warm blankets and warm clothes. Car blankets, also known as travel rugs, with their versatility can cover interior upholstery, protecting it from spills and pet hair. What's more, in the event of a breakdown, they can offer much-needed protection from the cold, while you and your passengers wait it out. As the stormy weather abounds, far more motorists are becoming conscious of potentially being stranded in their cars. Whipping winds, lashing rain or snow, or worse still, golf ball-sized hailstones are rarely fun. Less so if your car has broken down and you're waiting for help to arrive. The best kinds of blankets to keep in the car are fabric, with an element of waterproof. That said, it's tough to combine comfort and warmth with waterproofing materials, so it may also be worth keeping a carrier bag that a wet blanket can be shoved into once you're back on the road. It is also sensible to have some warm clothes to wrap up in. A big coat, gloves, a spare jumper, hat and gloves. If you have space, make sure all passengers have warm clothes they can put on to help stay comfortable in freezing temperatures. Let's talk about a must-have that often gets taken for granted: a spare tire. The spare tire, or stepney in some countries, is an additional tire carried in a motor vehicle as a replacement for one that goes flat, has a blowout, or has another emergency. Spare tire is generally a misnomer, as almost all vehicles actually carry an entire wheel with a tire mounted on it as a spare rather than just a tire, as fitting a tire to a wheel would require a motorist to carry additional specialized equipment. However, some spare tires, Space Saver and Donut types, are not meant to be driven long distances. Space Savers have a maximum speed of around 50 miles per hour or 80 kilometers per hour. When replacing a damaged tire, placing the compact spare on a non-drive axle will prevent damage to the drivetrain. If placed on a drivetrain axle, the smaller diameter tire can put stress on the differential, causing damage and reducing handling. The early days of motor travel took place on primitive roads that were littered with stray horseshoe nails. Punctures, flat tires, were common and required the motorist to remove the wheel from the car, demount the tire, patch the inner tube, remount the tire, inflate the tire, and remount the wheel. To alleviate this time-consuming process, Walter and Tom Davies of Llanelli in Wales invented the spare tire in 1904. At the time, motor cars were made without spare wheels. The wheel was so successful that the brothers started their own company, Stepney Spare Motor Wheel Limited, named after the location of their workshop on Stepney Street in Llanelli, and started marketing the wheel in Britain, Europe, and the British Empire and colonies. The word Stepney is sometimes used interchangeably in countries that were once part of the British Empire, such as Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, and Malta. The first to equip cars with an inflated spare wheel and tire assembly were the Ramblers made by Thomas B. Jeffery Company. The Rambler's interchangeable wheel with a mounted and inflated spare tire meant the motorist could exchange it quickly for the punctured tire that could then be repaired at a more convenient time and place. Contemporary vehicles may come equipped with full-size spares, limited-use mini-spares, or have run-flat capability. The spare tire may be identical in type and size to those on the vehicle. The spare may either be mounted on a plain steel rim or a matching road wheel is found on the vehicle. Many vehicles are provided with a limited-use spare tire, also known as a space saver, temporary spare, donut, or compact spare tire, in an attempt to reduce cost, lower the vehicle's weight, or conserve the space that would be needed for a full-size spare tire. They are typically smaller than the normal tires on the vehicle and can only be used for limited distances because of their short life expectancy and low speed rating. In some cases, automobiles may be equipped with run-flat tires and thus not require a separate spare tire. Other vehicles may carry a can of tire repair foam to repair punctured tires, although these often do not work in the case of larger punctures and are useless in the event of a blowout. Newer vehicles often do not come with a spare tire at all. The reduction of a spare tire increases fuel economy, cost of vehicle, as well as reducing production waste. Spare tires in automobiles are often stored in a spare tire well, a recessed area in the trunk of a vehicle, usually in the center, where the spare tire is stored while not in use. In most cars, the spare tire is secured with a bolt and wingnut style fastener. Other storage locations include a cradle underneath the rear of the vehicle. This cradle is usually secured by a bolt that is accessible from inside the trunk for security. The cradle arrangement is usually only practical on front-wheel drive cars, as the cradle would get in the way of the rear axle on most rear or four-wheel drive cars. In mid-engined and rear-engined cars, the spare tire is generally stored in the front boot. Last but not least, let's talk about a lifesaver that often gets overlooked: spare petrol. Storing spare petrol in your car can be a practical measure, especially if you travel long distances without passing any petrol stations. However, there are some considerations to keep in mind. The first one is safety. Petrol can be hazardous, so it's essential to follow safety guidelines. Plastic petrol carriers are not ideal for long-term storage due to temperature fluctuations and potential leaks. Metal containers are a better choice, and fire services recommend not filling to the brim as fuel expands, and vapor can build up in warm weather, creating a hazard. It must be kept away from the passenger compartment and in suitable portal petrol storage containers. The next consideration should be petrol quality. Petrol can degrade over time, so it's best to use it within a week. If you rarely need the spare fuel, consider rotating it periodically. Drivers have about 3 months from filling up a container before the quality of the petrol starts to degrade. If in a sealed container at 20 degrees Celsius, petrol can have a shelf life of 6 months, or 3 months if at 30 degrees Celsius, according to the Royal Automobile Club. Diesel, on the other hand, can remain usable for between 6 and 12 months. The last consideration is legal limits. In the UK, there's no law against carrying spare fuel, but there are restrictions. Motorists can legally store up to 30 liters of petrol in a maximum of 2 suitable containers in their vehicles. This means plastic petrol containers up to 10 liters in capacity, metal petrol containers up to 20 liters, or demountable fuel tanks up to 30 liters. They must also be clearly marked with the words petrol and highly flammable, be robust and not liable to break under the normal conditions of use, and also prevent the escape of petrol vapor. But even if you are transporting fuel within the guidance restrictions, you could still end up in hot water if you're pulled over by the police. Rules stipulate that it is down to an officer to determine if the fuel being transported can be considered a dangerous load or may be hazardous, and there will likely be penalties for those that fail this review. Despite being legal, the Health and Safety Executive advises not to store petrol unless you absolutely have to. Well, there you have it, folks. 12 must-have car tools for every prepper. Being prepared is about being responsible and ready to face challenges. Equip your car with these essential tools and supplies to handle the unexpected with confidence. Whether you're a seasoned prepper or just starting out, make sure you have these 12 must-have items. Thanks for watching, and remember, stay prepared, stay safe, and always be ready for anything. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful, and subscribe to the channel for more survival tips and tricks.